Hey, good morning. I wanted to share with you all something that I started doing with my son. Since the beginning of the school year, it's been consistent where he's been struggling with focusing and staying on task and completing his work. I mean, to the point where like work was coming home every day. It was a lot. Like on top of his homework, he would have to do incomplete work every day. It was just becoming very stressful. So, anyhow, what I came up with for him to do was a checklist in class. Um, that once he completed an activity, he would check it off because he works well, and you have to really identify what works for your child. But for me, what I found was that he works well against time, and he works well when he feels challenged somehow. So having a task and knowing that he can check it off was like an accomplishment for him, just to know that, hey, I finished something. And you may want to begin with like giving small rewards, but eventually you want to pull away because you don't want them to think like every time they do something good, they need to be rewarded for it. Good morning, Caleb. There's my baby. So what are you doing right now with task?
My clothes.
Your clothes. And where did you see your task? Anyway,
On my
go ahead.
on my checklist.
On your checklist. Okay, so thank you. Okay, continue. Thank you. So, we started the checklist in school, and sometimes he would get X's. The X's meant that the task was not complete for the day. So I'm like, okay, well, he's still getting these incomplete assignments. Um, we gotta fix. I mean, this is trial and error, people. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect the first time. So, um, so I then had some discussions with some people, some friends, and they said, you whatever you're doing at school, you need to keep it consistent at your home. And what I found also in the mornings was with Caleb, it was like, Caleb, brush your teeth. Caleb, put your bowl in the sink. Caleb, get your backpack. And it was just a lot of talking and a lot of every day. So I said, you know what? Well, it makes sense. He's doing the checklist at school. Let me start the checklist at home. And that's what I started. I literally started that like 2 weeks ago. And when I tell you it's been like a complete 360 with his work and his school, that's what it's been. Like his teacher's like, I don't know what you guys have been doing, but his behavior has been like his work. He's been so much more focused. He's been staying on task. So I don't know if it's because I started this checklist, but it's just ironic that I started this checklist at home that he's also doing at school. So here's an example of the checklist. All right, so here's the example of the checklist I created for him in the mornings. And it's just basic morning routines because I don't start with eat your breakfast because I wake him up and sit him down at this table when he eats. So the next step he would have to do is put his bowl in the sink, get dressed, socks, shoes, brush teeth, wash face, comb hair, lunchbox. So you would obviously adjust it to whatever, you deem necessary. And it works for me. All right, so it's not something that um, that I want him to have to use every day, but it's there for a guide. Like if he forgets, if he gets off task, the checklist is there for him to refer back to. Because eventually, I don't want him to have to use the checklist. He needs to get into the habit of just doing these things without having reminders for it. But for now, because he's still getting accustomed to doing these tasks and activities, it works for him. And sometimes he's like, I don't need my checklist, and it's fine. But he still goes back to look at it, which is okay. So yeah, that's something I found is working for him. And if it wasn't for me putting in these strategies and trying to come up with trial and error, they'll be ready to label him in the schools because guess what? Some kids, like I said, just need a different way to approach activities and tasks. And if the teacher is not patient, they're just like, this work's incomplete, and they're not coming up with strategies. So it's our job as parents to come up with these strategies to help our kids, because we know nothing's wrong with our child. Something must be wrong with the teacher. Not necessarily, but because some teachers are just stuck in their ways, stuck in how, how they've been doing things and how things have been working for them for so long. And then a kid comes along that is unique, and they just require a different approach. And because I'm an educator, I know how to come up with some of these strategies and things, because actually my undergrad degree was in elementary education. So, I was taught a lot of these strategies. It's a difference between actually learning them and then implementing them. Because most teachers are taught these things in school. But because they only have about a couple months of internship where they're actually getting the hands-on and getting the experience of being in the classroom. Every experience is different, and it could be overwhelming, and they forget a lot of things, and I don't know what happens between undergrad and then actually being in the classroom. I believe that they need more exposure within the classroom and hands-on before they become teachers, because they really don't know what the heck they're getting themselves into sometime. So anyway, like I said, this is trial and error, the checklist. It's been working, and he feels accomplished when he does it. And it saves me from having to be like, Caleb, do this, Caleb, do that, because who wants to do every freaking task where everything needs to be a reminder, everything, and it gets frustrating. And so hold them more accountable and let them build that independence. And eventually, like for now, his reward is if you get all your checks on your checklist, then you can listen to Michael Jackson in the morning. But eventually, he shouldn't need a reward for it. Sometimes he doesn't even get that because he doesn't remember that I promised him a reward. Because listening to Michael Jackson every morning is like, so it's like if he remembers, like, oh yes, Michael Jackson. But I don't stress it like, oh, you did your checklist, now let's get I don't stress that at all. Actually, sometimes I don't even mention it. He's just getting used to doing the task because he knows that that's what he needs to do in the morning. All right, so that's it for today. A little helpful tip from Mom.